Okay, imagine this. 20 years back, you walk into the doctor's office, think it's just a standard checkup. Next thing you know, you're actually in the ICU. Blood pressure through the roof. That sudden crisis, well, that's exactly what happened to one person, and it's really the hook for our deep dive today.
Wow, yeah. That kind of sudden health scare really makes you pause, doesn't it? It just shows how fast things can change and, how crucial it is to understand stuff like high blood pressure, even if you feel perfectly fine.
Exactly. And that whole experience, that very personal story, it led to the book we're looking at today. It's called Lowering Blood Pressure Naturally, A Patient's Guide to Hypertension Management by Dale Ruddock. So our mission really in this deep dive is to pull out the core insights from his journey, from the book. We want to understand, well, how much can lifestyle changes really do for managing hypertension? Ruddock's story is just a fascinating real-world case study. Whether this hits close to home for you or maybe you know someone dealing with it, we think there's definitely something valuable here.
Yeah, and what's so striking about Ruddock's initial situation is just how sudden and severe it was. This wasn't like a slow creep up that maybe gets missed for a while. No, this was immediate, critical, needed the ICU. That must have been a huge wake-up call.
Oh, absolutely. He talks about it like an instant transformation. 1 minute he's healthy, early 30s, young family.
Right.
The next, boom, life-threatening situation, no clear answers right away. He really conveys the shock of it all, that feeling of just being completely lost.
Yeah.
And that awful period of just not knowing the cause.
That uncertainty alone would be incredibly stressful, facing something so serious without knowing why. It really speaks to, well, how complex our bodies are and how imbalances can just pop up unexpectedly.
And Ruddock really gets across the emotional side, too. It wasn't just fear for himself, right? It was deep worry about his young family, their future. That vulnerability, it really hits home.
It does. It's a good reminder that these medical things, they don't happen in a bubble. They impact real people, families, their whole support network. Understanding that human side is just so important.
So eventually, after about 4 weeks of, tons of tests, he got a diagnosis.
Hyperaldosteronism.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's maybe unpack that a little. As Ruddock explains it in the book, this is basically where the adrenal glands, they sit right on top of your kidneys. They start producing way too much of a hormone. It's called aldosterone.
Exactly. And aldosterone, its job is basically managing sodium and potassium levels in your body. So when you've got too much of it, your body starts hanging on to extra sodium and water, all that extra fluid in your bloodstream. Well, that directly pushes your blood pressure up. It's a pretty specific hormonal thing going on.
Right. And his book also lays out the general dangers of having high blood pressure for a long time. It's not just about the numbers on the machine, is it? It's the potential long-term damage. He talks about the higher risk for really serious stuff like stroke, heart attack, kidney issues too, all because of that constant strain on the blood vessels. Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, well, you see why hypertension gets called the silent killer, right?
Yeah.
This ongoing pressure on your whole circulatory system, it can slowly damage organs over time. It's a major factor in a lot of serious health problems.
Okay, but here's where Ruddock's story takes a really interesting turn, a hopeful one maybe. After managing his hypertension with meds for over 20 years, and remember, his condition had that specific medical cause we just talked about there, he shares that now he's completely medication-free.
Wow.
Yeah, 20 plus years on prescription drugs. And then through what he calls simple, powerful lifestyle changes, he stopped needing them in under 3 weeks.
That is remarkable. It really challenges that idea that chronic conditions always mean lifelong medication, doesn't it? I mean, drugs are absolutely vital for many, no question. But Ruddock's story, it just powerfully shows the potential impact of, deliberate lifestyle shifts and the speed less than 3 weeks that's particularly striking.
Totally. And this personal success, that's what drove him to write the book. Ruddock says he wrote Lowering Blood Pressure Naturally as a real labor of love. He just wanted to share what worked for him, those specific changes. He especially wanted to reach people who might feel, I don't know, overwhelmed or maybe a bit hopeless after getting a hypertension diagnosis.
That desire to share, especially after such a big personal health win, it's really powerful. It suggests, real empathy and a belief that maybe others can find similar positive paths.
So he lays out 4 main areas in the book, areas he focused on. First, there's a step-by-step fasting guide. He emphasizes it's based on scientific research.
Okay.
Second, he dives into different herbal and dietary strategies aimed at helping the body's natural healing. Third, he offers meal planning tools, trying to make those diet changes stick, for the long haul.
Practical
Yeah.
stuff.
And finally, he talks about meditation techniques for cutting down stress and just boosting overall well-being. So it's quite a rounded approach.
That multi-pronged approach feels really key. It recognizes that blood pressure isn't just like purely biological. It's this complex mix, right? Diet, stress, other lifestyle habits all playing a role, including fasting, specific foods, and stress management like meditation. It points to a more holistic view of tackling hypertension. For instance, with the fasting, he talks a lot about intermittent fasting and its potential effect on insulin sensitivity, which can then help with blood pressure regulation.
That makes a lot of sense. It reinforces that managing hypertension is probably more than just swallowing a pill each day. And
Yeah.
Ruddock himself points out, hypertension, the silent killer, remember, because you might not feel it, it affects millions globally, huge numbers,
Mhm.
and it seriously bumps up the risk of major health problems. But he pairs this warning with a really empowering message. He says, knowledge is power, and more importantly, action is freedom.
That's such a vital point. Understanding the risks, yeah, that's step one. But actively doing something about it, taking steps to lower those risks, that's where the real empowerment kicks in, isn't it? It shifts things from just passively getting a diagnosis to actively participating in your own health, taking some control back. So, thinking about those dietary strategies, Ruddock really highlights getting more potassium, from things like leafy greens, bananas. The idea is it helps counteract sodium's effect on blood pressure.
Right. So for anyone listening, what's the big takeaway here? I think it's that Ruddock's journey, even starting from that specific condition, hyperaldosteronism, it shows the real potential for big positive changes through committed lifestyle shifts. It really speaks to the body's ability to heal and adapt, doesn't it? Now, thinking about those herbal things he mentions, he talks about incorporating stuff like hibiscus tea. He points to some research suggesting it might have diuretic and blood pressure lowering effects.
Exactly. And this brings up a really interesting point to consider, maybe for everyone. Just think about the power of being proactive with lifestyle adjustments for managing all sorts of health aspects. Reddick's story is just such a compelling case, showing how people can take a more informed, active role in their own well being. It's worth thinking how that perspective might apply to your own health interests or maybe concerns you have. And those meal planning tools he includes, he really hammers home planning meals around whole, unprocessed foods and just being super mindful of sodium. Practical tips, recipes, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. It really prompts you to think about the potential we all have, to influence our health through those everyday choices. And if you are interested in digging deeper into Dale Ruddock's specific methods, the fasting details, the herbs, the diet plans, meditation techniques, and countries, the book again is Lowering Blood Pressure Naturally, A Patient's Guide to Hypertension Management. You can find it over on Amazon.com, author Dale Ruddock. Definitely worth checking out if this deep dive has got you thinking about managing blood pressure naturally. What's really fascinating, I think, is that even with that clear physiological diagnosis, hyperaldosteronism, lifestyle changes were still so pivotal for him getting off medication. It just highlights how interconnected our body's mechanics and our daily choices really are.
It really does. And it leaves us with a final thought, maybe something provocative for you to consider. To what extent do you feel empowered to take an active role in managing your own health? Ronick's experience suggests that even when facing pretty significant health challenges, there can be huge potential for positive change through informed action, through commitment to lifestyle adjustments. How might you apply that kind of empowering message to other parts of your own health and well being?